Today we're going to be looking at the 2022 883 iron in the white sand pearl colorway. Before we jump into the review, I kind of want to talk about the significance of this bike. I really and truly think that if you want an 883 iron, at least a new one, this is going to be your last one. Harley is steadily dropping the conventional Sportster models from their lineup. For 2022, this is one of two options. You have the 883 iron and you have the Sportster 48, which is a 1200. If you want a conventional Sportster, these are your only two options. Now, as I've talked about that before, I think it's a two-part thing. The first and biggest thing being emissions. If you're in Europe and you're watching this, as you know, you can't get this bike. I don't think you could get it last year either. Emissions are tightening down here in the States as well. And then the second part of that is this engine has just run its course. As most of you know already, Harley dropped a brand new engine and a brand new bike known as the Sportster S last year for 2021. And my best guess is that Revolution Max engine that came in that bike will be what replaces this bike. And although I understand that as a business move, it's still gonna kind of be sad to see an icon go away. With that, let's jump into some details and see what makes this bike so good. So this bike has been around in this form for a long time. I'll give you a quick walk around just in case you're not familiar with the 883 iron. This thing just screams classic Harley Davidson styling, stripped down, no frills, bare bones type bike. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. You know, you say that and people think it in a negative way, but a lot of people just want bare bones. That's kind of the point of them being on a motorcycle, to be free, not be tethered by Bluetooth and have all this stuff distracting you from what you want to go out and do, which is enjoy the bike. So we'll start out sitting on the bike just to kind of show you what you're looking at here. Starting off with your speedo, it is analog. You do get some digital stuff. So you turn the bike on, you'll see you have your mileage there. You're just gonna hit your trip button here to cycle through that digital gauge there on the bottom. Trip A, trip B, your clock. This is going to tell you what gear you're in, which is really helpful. The only times it won't show what gear you're in is obviously when you're in neutral like we are now, or when you have the clutch in. This screen is also going to show you what your RPMs are, which is helpful for newer riders. Kind of helps you know when to shift. You go by the sound of the bike, but also as you can see the RPMs climbing, kind of figure out when to shift based on that. Cycle back through. It's going to show you your miles. All your indicator lights will be here, high beams, neutral, your oil, right turn signal, left turn signal, and that's it. Not a whole lot going on here. I mean, you are going to get little lights. You've got a low fuel light, engine light, battery light, things like that. Basically all you need and nothing else. So your fuel tank is going to be a 3.3 gallon tank. Now a lot of people criticize the Sportster for having this small little tank. You got to stop all the time. Depending on how you ride, you're going to get roughly 50 miles to a gallon, 150 miles. I've found that on a Sportster, I'm not mad about having to stop even before that, stretch my legs, get off, take a quick little break from the road, and then get back at it. So that's never really bothered me. Also, one thing that really sells this bike is the look of that tank, both from the top profile and the side. So any bigger would just look silly on this thing. Now normally I don't talk a lot of hard specs in my videos, but since the people watching this video might be new to motorcycling, I'll point that out for you guys. This is 564 pounds, which to some people could sound like a lot. You know, if you had to pick up 564 pounds, yeah, that's a lot of weight. However, balancing this thing, it feels super light, super nimble. It's a very, very manageable weight. So if you're a new rider, don't quite have that confidence yet, I would definitely recommend this bike because it is so light. The 883 iron does come with mid controls, which I really like. Harley tends to want to put forward controls on certain bikes that I feel like don't really warrant forward controls. This one, they got right in my opinion. Big fan of the mids. For me, I feel like I have more control over the bike, puts me in a better, more aggressive riding position. Up front, you've got a 19-inch wheel, which also contributes. You know, there's a lot of things going on with this bike that make it look as good as it looks. That 19-inch front wheel, just the right size, in my opinion, to really set this thing off. Single-sided rotor, nice, clean, simple headlight. The whole front of this bike is really clean, really simple. If you notice, you've got a front fender, a tank, and a rear fender. Basically your only painted parts. These irons come with what they call this wrinkle finish. Not a lot of maintenance to keep clean. As the bike ages, as long as you don't let it sit out in the weather, you don't put any harsh chemicals on this thing, that's pretty much how it's going to stay looking throughout its entire life. So you don't have to worry about polishing, doing anything like that. It's going to be a low maintenance bike, which is nice because that gives you more time to ride. Now, I don't have a ton of time on this seat, but based on feedback I've gotten, people that have this seat seem like they want to change it. I like that Harley's kind of done this wraparound. It does feel significantly better on your legs than just say like a hard stop right there. But once you get the bike, put some miles on that seat, see how it feels. I don't think it looks bad. It kind of fits the bike. So if it doesn't bother you, don't waste your money. Your rear shocks. This is something Harley started doing a good many years ago now, giving you this adjustable shock. So as you can see, you've got these dots for measurement. In your owner's manual, it will tell you where to set these shocks up based on rider weight. Obviously, that weight will change if you add a passenger, but I recommend dialing these shocks in. The ride will be significantly better. The way the bike handles will be significantly better. So you'll get a wrench when you buy this bike. You can undo this lock nut, and then you can tighten or loosen the spring as needed, and then just use those measurement dots to be sure you get both sides even. Typically, I don't start bikes on the channel just because it's hard to get a good accurate reading of how the bike sounds because you're listening to it through a microphone and speakers. But we're going to start this one up just so I can give you an example. So as you could tell, very quiet from the factory. Again, with the emissions, this is how all Harleys come. Changing the exhaust is going to help give it that traditional Harley Davidson sound. If you're going to do that, there's two different ways you can do it. You can put mufflers, which is just these two tail sections here on these pipes. That will give you all the sound you want, and that's all the money you'll have to spend, depending on what you go with. $250, probably all the way up to $600. However, I would recommend the full exhaust system. So you would be changing this head pipe on here too, obviously both sides. You would also pick out a new air cleaner, which is nice because there's so many options, so many good looking ones. What that's going to do is let more air in through the air cleaner, let more air out through the exhaust. The thing to pay attention to with that, you do need to tune this bike. If you change the amount of air going into the engine and the amount of air going out, you need to change the amount of fuel this bike's getting. That's going to make sure it runs its best, but it's also going to give you a little increase in horsepower, a little increase in torque. Can't tell you exactly how much because that depends on the exhaust you go with, the air cleaner you go with, the tuner you go with, and then the tune that you choose. So there are a lot of variables, but I will say doing those three things is very, very worth it on any Harley Davidson model. So we kind of went over this bike, what I feel was fairly quickly. However, if you are new to Harleys or new to this bike, interested in getting your first bike, and you have questions, anything that wasn't answered in this video, please feel free to leave me a comment ask me. I'll try my best to get back to it. If not, usually someone else will be able to answer your question for you. I'd love to see everybody get on a motorcycle, Harley Davidson or not. I don't care. I just know how much joy I get out of motorcycling. I want you to share that same experience. So I've been around Harley Davidsons pretty much my whole life, and I've been working in this industry since 2015. And thanks to this YouTube channel, I've gained access to a lot more people who are big fans of this design. People who honestly, none of the other Harley models interest them at all. They like this look of this bike. This is the only thing they're interested in. And I get it. I understand why. This is a really good looking motorcycle. You can pick them up used, really cheap. There are tons of aftermarket parts for these things. There are probably more aftermarket parts for the Harley Davidson Sportster than any other motorcycle all throughout history. So this is literally an iconic bike. Although I'm gonna be really sad to see it go, I'm also very excited to see what's going to take its place. I know the Sportster S styling wasn't necessarily for everyone, especially if this is what you're into. I have to feel like Harley Davidson knows that as well. And my guess is that they're gonna drop a model that looks really similar to this, but in its own way, different, with that new Revolution Max engine. However, if you want this thing, if you want that iconic look, that iconic Harley Davidson sound, and you want it in the 883 package, this is probably going to be your last year to pick one up. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe if you're not already. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.